specific subjects. I am Munojit Majumdar, editor for explanatory journalism at the Indian Express. We are discussing Pakistan today, as you know, where this extraordinary situation has been unfolding over the last year, the crisis coming to a head after the arrest of Imran Khan early this month. Imran is now free under court orders, but it is uncertain how long that situation will last. He has succeeded in channeling his personal animus against the present and the former chiefs of the Pakistan army into public resentment against the army itself. And the army has responded by taking his party apart and forcing many of its leaders to leave and arresting others. So, where is the situation headed? And what does this crisis mean for Pakistan and for India? To answer some of these questions, we have with us here Ambassador TCA Raghavan, India's former High Commissioner to Pakistan, and an old hand, much of whose diplomatic career was spent dealing with that country. Dr. Raghavan, welcome. Thank you for your time. We are delighted to have you here.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
You, Dr. Raghavan, are special to the Indian Express Explained. In 2016, perhaps a year after we launched the Explained section in our paper, we started this series of explanatory conversations with experts. It used to be a live event in Bombay and in Delhi, but after COVID, we've gone offline. So you, Excellency, were our first guest. So welcome back. We are delighted to have you back.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Speaking to Dr. Raghavan will be my colleague, Strategic Affairs Editor at the Indian Express, Nirupama Subramanian. Nirupama, you are an expert on Pakistan yourself. You have reported for several years from Islamabad, and you continue to keep a very close eye on that country. All of you can read Nirupama's wonderful reporting, analysis, and commentary on Pakistan and a range of other issues on our website, www.indianexpress.com. Today's Explained event is brought to you by our partner, Plutus IAS. My thanks to our partner. And thank you all for joining. Welcome once again. Nirupama.
Thank you so much, Manojit. Thanks a lot for that introduction and setting it up so nicely. And thank you, Ambassador Raghavan, for agreeing to be the expert on this live Explained. It means a lot to us that you're here with us today. And I will straight away ask you, if you want to make an opening statement, I'll straight away ask you to start off on that so that we can do questions. We can start with the questions after that. You have about 7 minutes, seven minutes, I think is okay. Isn't it, Monojit? 7 is fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Monojit, for inviting me again to this Indian Express Explained session, and thank you, Nirupama, for being part of this conversation. I think Monojit described the situation as it exists today, but I just want to use the few minutes that I have to give a slightly broader context. And yes, the term crisis is frequently used to describe the situation in Pakistan. And perhaps this is so because it is not a single crisis. What we are witnessing today as happening in Pakistan is a multiple crisis or a number of different crisis factors intersecting more or less at the same time. And the Imran Khan versus the current government and versus the army chief is certainly at the center of that intersection and is part of that multiple crisis, but there are other factors also. So if we look at Pakistan today, it's useful to go back almost exactly a year earlier, because that is when really everyone's attention got riveted to what was happening over there. And that was with a vote of no confidence being successful against Imran Khan, and he found suddenly, and to his surprise, when he felt that he was no longer Prime Minister. And this had happened because his earlier supporters and the institution responsible for making him Prime Minister, the military or the army, seemed to have developed a very jaundiced view of him and had turned against him and really got the rest of the opposition together, along with defections from his party, which led to a successful vote of no confidence and a new government in place of Imran Khan, and the PTI came to power. Now, along with that, about a month later, we saw Pakistan go through a terrible flooding situation. And the floods were devastating, affected a large part of the country. And that episode of flooding, bad enough as it was, it also riveted attention on Pakistan's economy. And the economy was under stress because of the downstream effects of the war in Europe, the situation in Ukraine, the long COVID crisis. That, along with the flooding and along with numerous other weaknesses which are inbuilt in the Pakistan economy, suddenly saw the economy go into a tailspin. And for instance, in the past 1 year, the Pakistani rupee has lost about 50% of its value. Inflation currently is at about 45%. So you have, alongside this political crisis and this tension between Imran Khan and the military, also economic crisis. Alongside this, there were also very, very disturbing from a Pakistani perspective developments on the security front, because the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, which had been somewhat dormant earlier, towards the end of last year suddenly became active, and we started seeing an increase in terrorist attacks in Pakistan. Now, this, of course, was related to the major change which had happened in Afghanistan a year before that, in August 2021, when the US assembled architecture came apart and the Taliban came back to power in Afghanistan. And that, in a sense, re-energized the Tehreek-e-Taliban in Pakistan. And that was part of the backlash of the return of the Taliban in Afghanistan. So alongside this political crisis, the civil-military issue, the economic crisis, you also had a disturbing national security situation emerging in Pakistan in the form of resumed major terrorist attacks. So all of this put together led to what I call the multi-pronged crisis. Other people call it a polycrisis. And certainly when Imran Khan was arrested earlier this month, it seemed to bring matters to a head. It seemed to be a kind of a tipping point. And perhaps it was, because what you then saw was that the military deciding that something had to be done to cut Imran Khan down to size. What we have seen after that is systemic efforts to dismantle his party, to isolate Imran Khan, and in a sense marginalize him politically. Now, to many, this appears to be a replay of an older script of the army versus democratic forces in Pakistan, with Imran Khan appearing to represent some kind of sentiment for greater civilian control over political affairs. In fact, yes, it is part of an older script, but it's a script in which different actors have played this role. So while you have the government today consisting of a coalition of the Pakistan People's Party and the Pakistan Muslim League, these have been the forces which were ranged against the military earlier. And now you suddenly find that they are standing with the military support or the army's support to act against Imran Khan and his party, which was a structure created by the military to cut the PPP and the PMLN down to size earlier. So this is a replay of an older script, but with some new elements. But in terms of an overview, there is no doubt that this is a serious political, economic, and security situation which Pakistan is going through. The civil-military tensions have been serious because you saw Imran Khan's supporters attacking military installations. The corps commander's house was the obvious target which attracted most attention, but there were other attacks, and including on martyrs or military heroes, their memorials, all of which had a pretty severe impact on public opinion in Pakistan. So we are currently at the stage where the next phase of the crisis is rolling out, which is the military determined to cut Imran Khan down to size, but he has considerable popular following, almost a cult-like status. So how this will play out is really the question which Pakistan confronts. So I'll stop there and take the conversation on further, depending on what Nirupma asks.
Thank you, Ambassador Raghavan. That was very nicely summarized. One long year, and you put it all together in 7 minutes. Congratulations. One long, very complicated and complex year. So thanks a lot for that. You said that this also has some elements from the past. I mean, political engineering that the army has done previously on several occasions. But there's also something different about this time. And to my mind, one of the differences is that as you mentioned, the neo-cult following that Imran has, the cult status that he enjoys, whereas in previous such situations, you saw a completely disgraced political player leave the scene. He left in exile, or he was removed from the scene, jailed, or she, as in the case of Benazir Bhutto. And they didn't have a following, really. I mean, in the sense their following melted away, and people celebrated the fact that the military removed them. But in this case, that seems to be one big change. The other change is that Imran Khan's really got under the skin of the military. Isn't that, it's that also is very extraordinary about this situation, isn't it?
Well, you're right. There is a change from the past, but it's useful to recall that that in the past too, there were very popular politicians who were removed. And certainly the fact that they were temporarily unpopular, or their policies had run into heavy weather, enabled their marginalization. But Benazir Bhutto was also had a very strong following. So did Nawaz Sharif at different points of time. And there are even older precedents, including those of Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. So yes, while Imran Khan's popularity appears to have a different quality to it, but it's useful to recall that this is really an older script which has been played out before. I think in the present case, what is certainly somewhat different is Imran Khan's defiance. In the past, when major political figures saw that the military had decisively turned against them, they chose to compromise temporarily. And either, as you said, go into exile or agree to taking a lower profile, or simply followed what the military wanted to do. I think in Imran Khan's case, there's been a posture of defiance, which is somewhat new. Whether it is good for Pakistan or bad for Pakistan is a different question. But certainly the extent of his defiance is a new factor. Your second question, sorry, what was the second question?
No, I just I mentioned two changes. Basically, you answered both in the sense his defiance of the military. I said he'd got under the skin of the military.
Yes, he had got under their skin. But again, this is yes, he had certainly got under their skin. But to some extent, they've also got under his skin with the measures which they've been taking. But this is the surprising feature about Pakistan, that every major political figure who has been built up by the Pakistan military at some point of time turns against the military or turns against the army. and wants to act independently. Which is why I think this is as strong an evidence as we will get, which should to show that the civil-military tension or the civil-military dynamic is the real dynamic. It's not. It's not a country simply which is run based on what the corps commanders or the generals want. There is a political constituency which constantly is seeking to enlarge its space, and therefore comes up on this collision course almost once a decade. So what is happening with Imran Khan today happened with Nawaz Sharif, happened with Benazir Bhutto, and has happened frequently in Pakistan's recent history.
Yeah. So there is actually the fact that Imran Khan has defied the military, and the military has come down heavily on him, as you said, dismantled the party, and almost you've seen second-rung leaders leave the party in droves, all of them reading from the same script, saying, we love the country's military, we respect the military, we swear our loyalty to it, and we did not participate in the violence. And many of them have left. Many top-rung leaders, Fawad Chaudhry, Shireen Mazari, Asad Omar, all these people have deserted him. So what do you think is Imran Khan's future now? Is we also saw him kind of backpedaling. He offered to hold negotiations. He's appointed a 7-member panel from his party. I don't know if all those members are still in the party or not, but he's formed this panel to negotiate with whoever is in power. He has said whoever is in power. He really hasn't said the government or the army, but he said whoever is in power. And Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has turned around and said, no, I don't negotiate with people who take on the army like this, who destroy the symbols of the army, who degrade the army. He has rejected those talks. But you saw a certain soft peddling from Imran Khan. Does that mean that he's changed his mind about the army, or what is it? I mean, what is this moment now?
Well, the Imran Khan phenomena over the past decade really had two principal components. One was his own popularity, his cult following, and that goes back to his iconic status as cricket captain, etc., his efforts to build this cancer hospital. So there is a strong personal charisma which was associated with Imran Khan and which started flowering from 2010, 2011 onwards. But that flowering had to do with the other part of the Imran Khan phenomena, which was the military's effort to boost him up. So they, in fact, put together the different components of the party which he led and surrounded him with people who were always close to the military and were inclined to following their instructions or saw things the same way as the army or the military did. So many of those now leaving Imran Khan, there are a few who have left because of direct pressure, but many of those who are leaving Imran Khan were those who never saw taking on the military as part of the menu when they joined his party. So that part of it is understandable and perhaps is the easy part of what the military is now embarking on. The more difficult part will be dealing with his personal popularity and the kind of iconic status which he has built up as someone who's trying to create a new kind of politics for Pakistan. And whether that is so in fact or not is a different matter, but certainly many of his followers see him as representing something new, a new political force. And that element, while it will go, it will become subterranean, it will go below the surface because of the pressure, will remain. And I think that really will hold the key to Imran Khan's future. I don't know whether he has soft pedaled. He appears to have, but the point about Imran Khan also is that he changes his positions quite radically. So he appears soft today. He may come out all guns blazing tomorrow. But right now, it does appear that there are forces ranged against him, which he never thought would assume the dimensions that they have. Perhaps when he took on the military establishment, there was an element of wishful thinking on his part, or he had started believing his own propaganda about the extent of support he had, including in the military. But in any case, now, at least for the short and medium term, his future looks much more difficult than possibly anyone could have anticipated.
So, do you think he's going to be disqualified? Do you think he's going to actually be able to stand for an election if an election is held? Because the whole attempt from the beginning of this crisis from last year seems to have been to ensure that as his popularity grew, to ensure that he does not really stand for election, because everyone knew that the election was going to be held this year, and no one in the system, the establishment as it's called, really wanted him in that election. So this whole effort to ensure that he doesn't stand, is that going to continue? Are we going to see a process towards disqualification, or is the army going to see that, disqualifying him might in fact complicate the problem, and then you'll have probably a bigger problem given what he calls his vote bank. He says my vote bank is still intact, and I'll come back because of my vote bank. My popularity, as you pointed out, his popularity, he says, is intact. So how do you read the tea leaves here? Is disqualification written on the wall for him?
It may be. I think there are a number of different strands which are being attempted by the establishment, and there's no clear certainty about which strand will finally be chosen. It's also not clear when the election will be. But in my opinion, there is a general sense within many in the military establishment and in the army that an error of theirs introduced the element of imbalance in Pakistan politics. Because what Imran Khan fears is being done to him, that he's going to be permanently disqualified from politics, was exactly what was done to Nawaz Sharif a few years ago. And that, I think, now some people or many people in the establishment feel that it weighed the scales too much in favor of Imran Khan. And somehow the playing field has to be leveled again. Now that playing field can be leveled in a number of ways, that Imran Khan is disqualified, and then at some future date there is some grand kind of reconciliation, and all those who had been disqualified earlier, such as Nawaz Sharif and others, are also allowed to come back into politics. So you have a more level playing field. I think that is the broad direction which events are going to take, because I think many in the army feel that we can't empower one party or one politician so much that party or that politician then becomes a problem for us to have. There always must be countervailing political forces, and that is the way they can manage the system much better, by playing off one against the other. So I do think this possibility of Imran Khan being disqualified, and that being the next step in what will obviously be a series of other measures before we actually come to the election stage.
So, a little while ago, we were discussing the defiance of Imran Khan. And so it could have, this defiance should have been a great democratic moment in Pakistan's history. This guy with a huge following, this mass resentment, outpouring of resentment against the army. It should have been this great opportunity to reset civil-military ties. But what seems to be in Pakistan right now is that even democratic-minded people are not seeing Imran Khan's rebellion against the army as a, a movement towards democracy as such, or towards the furthering of democracy in Pakistan. So can you talk a little bit about why this is so? What is it about Imran Khan's politics? What is it about his messaging that puts off democratic-minded people in Pakistan and elsewhere? I'm sure. I mean, a lot of people don't see him as a democratic icon. I mean, the same way as Aung San Suu Kyi was, when she defied the military, there was no question. She was a democratic. She was an icon of democracy. People, worshipped her in the same way that they worship Imran Khan. But there was no question that she was fighting for democracy. Here, there seems to be a little dissonance in the message that Imran Khan is bringing to the table. Tell us something about that, please.
Well, to many Pakistanis, Imran Khan is no Democrat. And in fact, if one looks at the current situation, it's quite evident that he did not want to be in this situation where he is having to battle it out with the army establishment. I think that was the last thing on his mind. It's various tactical steps and missteps from different directions which have led to this situation. Imran Khan's real objection was that why the army was not supporting him. He was not trying to, in general, advance the civilians' space in Pakistan or the democratic space in Pakistan. What he felt was that he should be in charge and the military should do what he says and should be supporting him rather than anyone else. So in that sense, he's an unlikely democratic figure. And most people in Pakistan, or many people in Pakistan, except for his own supporters, see the shallowness of his democratic credentials. But history works in strange ways. So he is a most unlikely Democrat. But what in the process, if one stands back from the here and the now, certainly he has expanded in many ways the political space in Pakistan. And while the current situation may well lead to a greater extent of military assertion, in the longer term, you will see that different people will have different takeaways, because there is talk about much greater support within the military, and especially in families of military officers, about the need for more for political parties to have a greater say in the running of Pakistan and the military. The military should confine itself to security related matter. So in the longer term, certainly that will that may well be a takeaway. But in the short term, this is no longer now a question of democracy versus military. This is a scrap between different political forces trying to maximize, each of them trying to maximize their position. So the democracy part is certainly taking a back step right now, because whether it is Imran Khan himself, because the way he acted against the rest of the political spectrum when he was Prime Minister was hardly democratic. The things which are being done to him or his supporters is precisely what he did to them. And there is an element of revenge as they turn on him and his supporters in much the same way. So this is not a question of democracy gaining or not. It may well have that long-term effect, but in the short term, in the here and now, I think it's very much a scrap to see who wins.
Great. You mentioned when you're discussing this that it has created some dynamics within the Pakistan army as well. And at the height of this crisis, 2 weeks ago, or in mid May, it was being said and speculated very widely that the cracks have begun to show in the Pakistan army. In fact, over the whole year, there was talk about this, that the rank and file are actually with Imran Khan, and it's only the officer cadre that is still, that's still hankering after power and that old preeminent position that it had, and and it's the army is kind of horizontally divided between Imran Khan and the chief and the army chief. Earlier it was Bajwa, Qamar Javed Bajwa, and now it's General Asim Munir. But from the and when this thing exploded, there was talk that the officer class is also sort of rebelled against the army chief, and that there might even be a coup against him, and that his days are numbered. But from the tough crackdown on Imran Khan, I mean, people are saying they haven't seen a crackdown like this since Zia's time, and so does that indicate that they've closed ranks again? And is that, in a sense, the logic of being the Pakistan army, that you have to stand together, because if the Pakistan army is to retain its position as a preeminent power in Pakistan, then they have to look out for each other. There can't be a coup without the next guy in line being exposed to the same kind of dynamics at a later stage.
I think that is certainly the case, that the closing of the ranks has taken place. But to my mind,
of self-preservation,
the measure of self-preservation as the only way to maintain order, and perhaps there was the sense that things are going too far, and we really have to hang together. Otherwise, it will be even more difficult. But possibly it is also the case, and I say this after, let me qualify that this time there have been more evidence of dissonance within the Pakistan army, both in the media, at the middle level and at the higher levels, than we have come across in the past. So certainly there is more dissonance this time. But having said that, it's also possible that the signs of this dissonance were magnified or exaggerated. And nowadays, an exaggerated or amplified picture of reality is easier to project than in the past because of social media. And certainly this impression by various retired military officers, some of whom live abroad, making it out that various corps commanders have defected and the current chief faces a coup. I think those impressions people took at face value. And in fact, the army was never as divided as it may have appeared. I think it's also useful to remember that the past few months for the Pakistan army itself has been a very difficult time. They went through a very messy transition when General Bajwa when General Munir succeeded General Bajwa. It was possibly the most publicly contested transition in army chiefs which Pakistan has seen for a very long time. General Munir is still relatively new. He took over only in the end of November, and he has not had time to stamp his own authority on the whole command structure. So all of this certainly added to that impression that there's a structural fault in the Pakistan. There are fault lines in the Pakistan Army Command. But as I said, possibly those were exaggerated, and certainly we can say that Imran Khan also probably started believing his own magnification or his own propaganda. And he didn't expect this kind of a reaction and a crackdown on him because he thought that he's so popular that even within the military that nobody can act against him.
Yeah. So would you agree on balance that the Pakistan army has been weakened by this entire year, by the developments of this entire year? Is it now a kind of a weakened force in Pakistan's national life? I mean, its place in Pakistan, has that diminished somewhat?
Well, it's very difficult to say, but certainly it is true that its image has been dented. And the image has been dented also because, and this is a general factor, what is extraordinary about this current crisis in Pakistan is how openly it is playing out. Everything which is happening is being discussed non-stop in the mainstream media, but also on the social media. And you have revelations about everyone and everything. And these are areas which were in the past considered to be no-go areas. But you're hearing about deals which generals had made. You're hearing about what their family members have been up to. And all of this together with their machinations to stay in power, to get extensions for themselves, to feather their own nests, to further their business interests, all of this has certainly dented their image. General Bajwa, during his tenure, was being built up as the soldier's soldier, this very far-sighted military statesman. But by the time he left, virtually everyone had turned against him, and he was seen as a figure who had been trying to basically further his own personal interests rather than anything else. So yes, the Pakistan Army's image is badly dented. Whether it means that there is going to be a structural retreat by it in terms of the role it plays in Pakistan politics is more difficult to answer. I don't think we will see an early retreat of the Pakistan Army from the role it has played. Because if anything, the short-term factors which have made it, take control of the situation, that itself will create its own momentum and make it play a much greater role in Pakistan politics, or the kind of role it has always played. So I think whatever the impact of this denting of the image is, it will be felt over a long period of time. It won't be felt immediately.
Okay. Just moving on from the Pakistan Army, we'll come back to it later. There's so many questions, and the audience is also waiting to ask questions. We have lots of questions from the audience as well. Can we just talk about the judiciary? Because when you say that you said that this was a scrap between the elites of Pakistan, between the power elites of Pakistan. On the one hand, the politicians; on the other hand, the army. Among the politicians, a divided group of politicians from different parties. Then the army, and then you also have the judiciary, isn't it? I mean, they are divided as well. It's for the in recent memory, I think this is the most divided higher judiciary that you've seen. And can you talk about that a bit?
Well, we haven't spoken about the judiciary, but yes, just like the political class is divided, and there is more talk about divisions in the military than in the past. The judiciary has also certainly is very dramatically shown all the divisions within it. And these reflect to a great extent the larger polarization in Pakistan itself. So the talk now is that in effect there are two Supreme Courts in Pakistan. One headed by the Chief Justice, who is inclined towards Imran Khan, the other headed by the Chief Justice to be, who is inclined towards Nawaz Sharif's party.
That's also going to be a difficult transition, isn't it? That's coming up in September.
Well, that transition is clear because Justice Issa, who's the senior most judge after the Chief Justice, it's very clear he is going to become Chief Justice.
But the army don't like him that much.
I think the army also realizes that it has, I think this is one part of, to answer your earlier question, the army also realizes it no longer has good options to choose from. It has to choose from a menu of bad options. And in that, I think he's definitely preferable to some of the other judges. But in any case, his transition to chief, barring the unfathomable, something which cannot be predicted, is clear. In the case of the military chief, the difficulty was that it's not as if one single general is identified to succeed the outgoing chief. There is a choice to be made out of four or five. Here, there is no such choice. He is the senior most judge in the Supreme Court, so he will become Chief Justice when the Chief Justice retires. But yes, that's up to that point, while the current Chief Justice is in place, there is going to be a great deal of play and different kind of conflicting judgments, because the Chief Justice and his family themselves are various accusations being made against them. And as I said, the Supreme Court is split into two, and as are many of the high courts and so on. Now, what does this mean? It does mean that the judiciary has emerged as a player in its own right in Pakistan's politics over the past decade and a half, since the first decade of this century, when Justice Zulfikar Chaudhary was sacked, and that led to lawyers and judicial movement. I think what has happened is that it's not just the judiciary, the different bar associations in Pakistan, which are the lawyers really, they have emerged as a political force. And they reflect to some extent the polarizations in Pakistan's politics between different parties, but also act as an independent force demanding their own space and very, very sensitive to any infringement of their rights. So yes, the judiciary is also a factor in this, and certainly till September, when the current Chief Justice retires, there are going to be all kinds of ups and downs and games being played in both directions.
Great. So, Ambassador Raghavan, I think, I'm going to open this out to the floor. There are lots of questions. So I don't want to, cut into that time. But I'll tell you what, I'm going to, most of the questions are really to do with India-Pakistan relations. And I'll summarize a bunch of them because I can't call out everybody's name, because a lot of people have the same question. And the question is starting with, just give me 1 minute. Starting with Dharampal Singh, who's a member of the Delhi Child Welfare Committee, is in the government of is the Delhi government, and people have the same question. A lot of people have this question: how does this chaos in Pakistan, this tumult, political uncertainty, and of course, we didn't speak about this, but this will come up now in the questions. The economic crisis, Pakistan's economic crisis, which you mentioned in the in your opening remarks. How does all this affect India? And a lot of people have asked if this is an opportunity for India to actually take back POK and Gilgit-Baltistan and aid in the collapse. And or to ask if Pakistan is actually going to implode. I mean, this is a favorite word these days about Pakistan. Is it going to implode? And some also have raised this question of nuclear weapons. So I'd like you to talk a little about, how we in India should see this, or I mean, we view this, we are seeing this every day. But is there a way to see this crisis in Pakistan?
Okay, let me address these points, and let me begin with the larger question you just put. That is Pakistan imploding. Is it now totally a failed state? Is it just coming apart? Is it going to disintegrate into internal chaos? Now, it is undeniable that Pakistan is seeing more political conflict than we have noticed for a long time. Does it mean it's imploding? To my mind, no. There is no evidence so far that Pakistan's state structures are collapsing or have stopped working, or people are deserting their posts and the government machinery is just withering away. There's no evidence for that at all. So for us to link the political chaos and the economic, very severe economic downturn to a withering away of the Pakistani state, I think that's a kind of, flight of fancy. It's not happening. What you're seeing is very intense political conflict and to an extent civil military conflict and a kind of dysfunction in the government which prevents any kind of purposeful policy attention on the economy and on the numerous other problems which Pakistan faces. So certainly that part is true. But from that, we cannot jump to the conclusion that the whole show is coming apart, and that is an opportunity for us to get back POK and Gilgit-Baltistan. You see, we must remember that what is happening in Pakistan is a purely domestic crisis. There is no external angle to it. These are domestic political parties and the military and the judiciary all fighting amongst themselves for all kinds of reasons. But none of these reasons has an external dimension or no major external dimension. There is very little the outside world can do to get involved in this domestic state of affairs. So whether it is the United States or whether it is China or India, none of us can help or none of us can get involved in this crisis. This is something which the Pakistanis have to sort out themselves. I think external intervention will bring Pakistan together. So if you think that this is a time which presents a tactical opportunity for India, that would be wrong thinking, because the Pakistani military, as I said, remains a credible, unified, it has a credible and unified command structure. So it's not as if we have suddenly got an opportunity where a better opportunity than in the past. That situation is not correct at all. So it's unrealistic to think of those scenarios. The second question is, sorry.
No, please. Sorry, I interrupted you.
But what is the impact of this crisis on India? As I said, this is a domestic crisis. So far, it has had no impact on it. If you look at the last 1 year, over a year, we have seen this very, very difficult situation in Pakistan where virtually everyone is taking on everyone else. But it's not had much of an impact on the ceasefire on the line of control, and it appears to be holding. So while the rhetoric on both sides has occasionally been strong, on the whole, our relations with Pakistan have remained reasonably stable, but it is stability at a very low plateau because of what has happened in the past 5-6 years, which you all know about. Our relations are at a very low plateau. It's a minimal relationship. We have no trade. There's not even There are not even high commissioners in place. You have very little political or other contact. So it's a minimal relationship, but it has been stable. There's no sign, as I said, that this domestic crisis is flowing outside Pakistan's borders. By the same token, I don't think we are in an opportunity to intervene in that domestic crisis. There are some noises from India occasionally that should we help Pakistan economically the way we helped Sri Lanka. It's not a realistic situation. It's not a realistic scenario. Their requirements are so much that we have our own limitations. Sri Lanka is a much smaller country. Pakistan is the 5th or 6th largest country in the world. It's over 220 million people. We don't have the pockets to help them in any meaningful way. And for that matter, no country does. You can't help a country the size of Pakistan unless it wants to help itself. But there's also been no realistic sign that this economic crisis means a kind of situation where we may have to deal with thousands or hundreds of thousands of refugees coming into India. It's not that kind of an economic meltdown. It's a situation where people are facing grave difficulties, but it's again shown no signs of spilling across Pakistan's borders. So in sum, I would say that the impact of this domestic crisis on India has not been much, and it's a good thing it's not been much. We should also try to insulate ourselves from that crisis and wait for some kind of stable situation to emerge before we decide what policy measures we will take.
So, if I may jump in here, is it possible that because of this economic crisis and because of this general power struggle and the perhaps the weakening of the army in the public mind in Pakistan, do you think there is a possibility that they might actually say, okay, Kashmir is a problem between the two countries, but let's put that aside for now, and let us do trade, like India and China do trade. We have huge big issues, but we are trading with each other. In the same way, do you think a time will come in the near future, because of this economic crisis, that Pakistan and India start trading with each other? They open the corridor for us to Central Asia, Afghanistan. Is that something that might happen, or are we just speculating idly?
Well, I think given their economic crisis, they would be well advised to think of opening up on trade with India.
And in fact, Bajwa did try this. I mean, he did put it out.
Try this.
Yeah.
But given the extent of political polarization, it's a very difficult thing to do just now, because there's so much political churn that no one wants to take a major decision like that on India and be accused by their political opponents of selling out and so on. So this is not a time where we can expect major policy change with regard to India. And by the same token, this is not a time where we should think of doing anything substantial of major changes. So while opening up on trade may appear to be the right thing to do, I don't think it's going to happen.
Right. So, Monojit, are you going to ask people to come in with their questions, or?
No, I think we've have we run through the list of people that we have?
No, we haven't.
Okay, so I think just go ahead. All the people who have lined up, I think we should go through that list.
Right. So I'll call on Mr. Kuldeep Singh, who's the principal of the Government Boys Senior Secondary School at Adarsh Nagar, Delhi. He has a question. So if he can come in now, please.
Thank you, ma'am. And my question pertains to that how this instability in Pakistan in terms of the democracy, in terms of the judiciary, in terms of the internal peace state is going to have an impact on the infiltration in Kashmir and adjoining areas in Rajasthan, Punjab and Gujarat. do we have to introspect our contemporary strategy and the foreign policy in respect of the Pakistan, keeping in view our internal safety? Because whenever we have seen in past, instability has increased in Pakistan, it has caused increased infiltration of the militants into the valley. And in recent incident, we have seen that there is an increase of the violence in valley and suicidal attempts. So my question is that should we have something, another visionary and futuristic approach just to control these probable threats to our nation? Thank you, ma'am.
Ambassador Raghavan? Yeah.
Thank you, Principal Kuldeep Singh, for your question. It's a very interesting question. I think where Pakistan is concerned and where the risks and dangers of infiltration are concerned, we have to be constantly on our guard. I don't think it's we can say that because Pakistan is domestically in harmony, or it is stable, or that the government is stable, we can relax. And I don't think we need to be on our guard only when Pakistan is going through instability. I think, if you look at the history of India-Pakistan relations, you will find that infiltration or other security threats emerged at different points of time, both when Pakistan is internally stable and when it is not stable. So I think we have to be on our guard constantly. But on your other question about do we need to think of revisiting our approach, I think it's good to always review and update your policy approaches. It's very clear that after this instability phase in Pakistan, if it comes to an end, and it certainly, I think, will come to an end at some stage, there will be some new kinds of developments in Pakistan, and we should certainly examine them, analyze them to see whether those provide any opportunities for us. So I would agree with you that yes, we need to constantly be reviewing our policy and have to think about Pakistan as part of our neighborhood, which we cannot simply forget about. There is no way we can, pretend that we can deal with the rest of the world and forget about Pakistan. That's an unlikely scenario. It's always going to be there. You have to deal with it, and you have to deal with it protecting your own national interests.
Nirupama, you'll have to unmute yourself.
Sorry, there's an interesting question in the chat box from Mr. Anand Kumar. I don't know if he's still with us, but he's asking, to what extent can we agree with former Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee's statement that what is actually in India's interest is a stable and peaceful Pakistan?
That's a very interesting question because, there are many people who constantly quote Prime Minister Vajpayee that a stable and peaceful Pakistan is in our national interest. There are many others who disagree with that, who feel that a Pakistan which is not stable, which is domestically not in harmony, is in our interest because it is then self-engrossed rather than thinking about how they can advance their own negative agenda vis-a-vis India. My answer is in two parts. If we are totally realistic, Pakistan is a country with nuclear weapons. We have a history with it, which is very adversarial, very bitter. And as I said, our present-day relationship is minimal. Now, if you have a neighbor with nuclear weapons, do you want it to be coming apart? Do you want it to be breaking up into different factions? Do you want a Sudan-type situation in Pakistan where two different wings of the state have embarked on a civil war against each other? Now, purely from our own national interest point of view, obviously we don't want it. Because in a fundamental sense, stability in Pakistan, therefore, is in your national interest. The second part of my answer, and this is something which I often say, that we also have to be realistic about our own limitations. You see, whether Pakistan is stable or unstable, whether it is domestically at peace with itself or not, is not something which you can do anything about. As I said, the domestic crisis in Pakistan today is a purely domestic crisis. No external power can either increase that crisis or help reduce it. Similarly, it's not in our power to either increase stability in Pakistan or increase instability in Pakistan. So it's in some ways an academic kind of question or an academic kind of approach that does a stable Pakistan suit us or not? In the real world, you have to deal with your neighborhood and with all your neighbors as they are and not as how you imagine them to be or as how you wish them to be. So you have to deal with Pakistan as it is and not as something which you are trying to engineer to suit you.
Okay, may I now ask Krishna Pillai of Dubai? He used to be with Airports Authority, I think. AAI is, I hope that's what it stands for. May I ask him to come in with his question? Is he still with us?
Yeah. Good evening, madam.
Yeah, good evening.
Yeah, this is regarding utilization of the opportunity due to their economic crisis, political crisis, and the food crisis. Is it time for India to interfere for a positive approach for offering some sizable help so that we can live more peacefully in India by containing terrorism, cross-border terrorism, and a no-war pact with India for 50 years?
A no-war pact.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Mr. Pillai. Well, the first part of your question was that given the food crisis and the economic crisis, can India think of helping? And that will help in improving the atmosphere. You know, we in India and Pakistan, nobody begins from a clean slate. We cannot simply assume that we will do something just now, we can offer something just now, and it will be taken at face value. It will not. Most probably, if India offers assistance to Pakistan, that offer will be turned down because people in Pakistan will not see this as a genuine Indian offer to help. They will see it as Indians relishing the difficulties which Pakistan is going through. So as I said, nobody begins from a clean slate. Dramatic gestures or dramatic changes will not lead to an improvement in India-Pakistan relations and will enable us to have a no-war pact, and we can then have a peaceful kind of coexistence thereafter. I think we have a long history of very bad relations, and it will take a long time to improve those relations. There is no answer, there is no other instrument you have of embarking on that course of improving relations, except patient diplomacy, difficult diplomacy. That is the only way forward. No dramatic gesture, no dramatic policy change will suddenly reverse the long history of 75 years of bitterness and conflict. We have to embark on a more patient, long-term policy and hope that it gives good results.
Right. Thank you. I'm going to ask Mr. Manu Kaushik, who's a freelance writer based in Delhi. May I ask him to come in with his question, please?
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, please ask.
Hi. Mr. Raghavan, this is with reference to Imran Khan saying initially that his government had been removed because he had discontinued the drone operation into Afghanistan, and that then kind of cut ice with the US. And after his removal at one or two instances, he has specifically named US as the actor behind his government's dismissal, and he continues, say till last month, he used to call the new government sort of stooges of the US. So while now he's kind of toned down on that rhetoric, what do you read of these allegations, and do you think it is uh, a fight between an independent sovereign nation wanting to have its own head of state and a foreign power trying to impose a government which is a puppet government? So, what is your reading on that?
Well, when Mr. Imran Khan lost the vote of no confidence, that was the narrative which he adopted, that this was a US-led conspiracy to unseat him, and he used terms such as Mir Jafar which is Pakistanis who had worked as instruments of US policy to unseat him. The facts are that there was no US conspiracy. It was a domestic set of issues which led to his unseating. And thereafter, at different points of time, he has referred to different conspiracies. As you said, he toned down on the US conspiracy, but then he started talking about a London conspiracy. Occasionally, there have been hints about the fact that he opposed General Bajwa, the previous army chief, wanting to normalize with India. So there's talk about an Indian conspiracy. But these are all conspiracy theories, and I don't think they have much credibility. For Mr. Imran Khan's followers, the extraordinary part of the situation is that his followers are quite prepared to believe anything which he says. So certainly they may have some credibility that these are foreign powers who want to destabilize Pakistan, and they want to do this by unseating the most popular leader Pakistan has ever had, etc., etc. But realistically, in terms of accuracy, there's no real grounds for any of these theories. What is happening in Pakistan is a domestic conflict. It doesn't have any external factors involved in it.
Right. There were also some questions. Thank you, Mr. Kaushik. There were also some, taking this thing about domestic conflict further. There were some questions earlier. I don't know if those people who asked the questions were here, but I'm just summing up their questions, saying, is this the internal tumult? How does it affect the CPEC project, the China-Pakistan Economic Cooperation Project? How is it? Is that affected? Are there going to be setbacks in it?
Well, I think certainly this domestic turmoil in Pakistan will have an impact on the CPEC also. Even if the impact is not felt directly, because of the devaluation of the Pakistani currency, it has a knockdown impact on all foreign assisted projects being implemented in Pakistan. Secondly, this kind of instability with no clear direction about when the elections are going to be makes any foreign investor that much more concerned about how much to press on the accelerator. So I think all of this will have a knockdown impact on Chinese projects in Pakistan. Because of the strength of the China-Pakistan relationship, this negative impact will never be acknowledged. But I think it will be felt on the ground, and it will certainly lead to each of these projects facing headwinds. But as I said, the fact that this has a negative impact will never be acknowledged. But common sense tells me that there will be a negative impact on these projects also.
I think the underlying hope behind this set of questions about China and the fallout on CPEC is really whether this will weaken the China-Pakistan relationship, and you've answered that. Even if it does,
in any case, I don't think it will weaken the China-Pakistan relationship. In the medium term, it will end up strengthening it. You see, the China-Pakistan relationship serves different interests for both countries, which is why both of them attach such high importance for it. And for the Chinese, there are many reasons. And when the Pakistani economy and when the Pakistan state slipped into a kind of slow crisis about 20 years ago, the Chinese were very concerned about it, and they thought that this is a major strategic ally. It's a big country on our periphery. We have to do what we can to help. And their way of helping is trying to build infrastructure, because they see Pakistan's strategic value for their own larger foreign policy interests. So as Pakistan slips, if it continues on this route towards greater and greater dysfunctionality, in my assessment, the Chinese will try to help even more. Whether that will succeed or not is a different matter, because Pakistan's problems are domestic issues. There is no way that foreign capital can solve Pakistan's problems unless they attend to all the other aspects of their economy. Only Pakistanis can solve Pakistan's problems. No foreign country can solve Pakistan's problems. So I don't think there will be less Chinese interest. But I don't think that Chinese impact will make a big difference to what is happening in Pakistan internally, unless the Pakistanis themselves come to some kind of better understanding among themselves.
So next I'll call upon Mr. Hemant Bhagwat from Chiplun, and he is a retired IAF, Indian Air Force officer. Mr. Bhagwat, are you here? Yeah, please.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Thank you. Sir, my question pertains to constituency within Pakistan, which is also indirectly involved in this fracas which is going on.
Sorry, we are losing you, Mr. Bhagwat. You're not
various
very audible.
actors. See, Imran Khan is not only supporting Taliban openly, but he has also recommended and accommodating the TGP. Okay, I will Shaibal. Hello.
So
Hello,
I understand it's about Imran Khan and the Taliban and the TTP.
Am I audible now?
Yeah. Your question, we understood your question.
So my question is, lot of fundamentalist elements are coming out in the street to support Imran Khan. Though these elements have been used by the Pakistani army as well, they have a control mechanism to somehow handle them. Should Imran Khan make a comeback in October, will he be in a position to handle these elements? Thank you.
Thank you. It's a very good question. Now, we must remember one very striking thing about Pakistan, and especially the Pakistan army, that the Pakistan army is most ineffective in controlling instruments which it has created. So whether you take political parties or politicians, or whether you take terrorist groups, both of them over the years have turned on the Pakistan army with a vengeance. So, for instance, whether you look at the TTP, which was a creation of the Taliban, which was a creation of the Pakistan army, but the backlash of that in the form of the TTP is something which the army has to face. Similarly, Imran Khan, other politicians like him, were created by the Pakistan army, and then they turn against the Pakistan army itself. So this view which we somehow have that the Pakistan army has a fantastic control mechanism, I think we should always qualify. In fact, they are not very good at controlling situations which they initiate. Now,
they couldn't control Imran Khan, for instance.
Absolutely. Imran Khan, for instance, or before that, Nawaz Sharif in the 1990s.
Yeah.
But whether Imran Khan has a great deal of support from the fundamentalist elements, one doesn't know. You see, Imran Khan tried to make himself a kind of persona who's all things to all men. And certainly he adopted very conservative features, and many people used to call him Taliban Khan because of the postures he took. But let's not forget that supporting the Taliban and helping them make a comeback in Pakistan was not just Imran Khan's policy. It's a long-term Pakistan state policy. It was implemented over a number of governments, through a number of army chiefs, because they felt that this is something which they have to do in their own interest, regardless of the backlash that they may get from the TTP and other extremist groups who feel empowered and then want their own space in Pakistan. So it's not Imran Khan so much who has been at the head of the growth of extremism or extremist parties in Pakistan. There's a long history to that. Imran Khan tried to use that to his advantage, but it was a minor factor in his overall politics. The main thrust of his politics always was that I'm different from the dynasts in the PPP and the PMLN. They are crooked. I'm honest. I'm working for Pakistan. What has been done so far has been nothing. We must have a hakiki azadi. The TTP and the extremist groups played some role sometimes because the army used them to help him, but not a major role. His own view was this new kind of politics which he was trying to create.
Right. The next question is from Priyadarshini Karan. She's with Plutus IAS, and she's a career psychologist. Is she here? Yeah. Ms. Karan, can you please ask your question?
Yes, hello, this is Priyadarshini, and it's an honor to speak in front of you. So I'm representing Plutus IAS today. So my question for you, sir, is will suppression of Imran Khan lead to another decision of Pakistan, as we have witnessed in the past when People Mandate of East Pakistan was neglected, which led to the formation of Bangladesh?
Thank you. Very interesting question. And I think Mr. Imran Khan also some days ago spoke about the lessons of 1971 have been forgotten, and the same kind of situation can repeat itself. You see, 71 situation was different because it was a federal issue, that the most populous part of Pakistan, which was East Pakistan then, they were being denied their political and economic rights. So it was very much a federal and a regional and an ethnic and a linguistic issue, and its mishandling by the Pakistan government and the Pakistan army at that time led to the breakup of Pakistan. In the current crisis, it's not so much a federal or a regional issue. This is a conflict between Imran Khan and his political opponents, in which the Pakistan military has decided to support his political opponents. So it's not a comparable situation. But in a general sense, the question, I mean, I can also interpret the question as saying that, if Imran Khan is suppressed and he has a large constituency, won't that lead to a long-term problem for Pakistan? I think in that sense, it's true that there is that if a large section of political opinion is alienated or is suppressed, it does have negative impacts in the future. I think at this stage, people are still trying to find out that while everyone knows that Imran Khan is popular and he has a huge support, how important is that? Will it stand up on its own, or is it only important because he had the support of the Pakistan military in the past. So that is something which we are going to find out in the coming months, that how strong is his support. If it is very strong, I would agree with you that it will have negative consequences for Pakistan in the future. But if it's not very strong, then he'll probably just become marginalized with no major consequences.
Ambassador Raghavan, if I may ask a question here. Speaking about how the Pakistan army messed it up in 1971 by ignoring that mandate and the will of the people, since then, I think, what struck me most when in those 4 years that I spent in Pakistan was this relationship that the Pakistan army has with the people of Pakistan. And I think General Asim Munir has also spoken about the love of the Pakistani people for the Pakistan army. And in recent days, there has been talk of how this compact between the Pakistan army and the Pakistan people has somehow come under stress. It has been under stress before as well, in Musharraf's time, we saw that. But at this point, it seems to be under more stress than before. What is this relationship actually? Because it seems to me part love, part hate. It seems to me that the Pakistan army will never do anything, at least it has not done since Bangladesh, will never do anything to physically hurt large sections of the population, especially in the Punjab. They won't risk that. And in fact, one of the reasons for the rioting, the arson, the case of arson on May 9th was attributed to the fact that Pakistan army said, okay, let them, we are not going to do anything. We are not going to do anything to hurt the people. Let them just vent their anger and it'll blow over. What is this relationship? Can you talk a little bit about that? Pakistan as the guardians of the country and the belief in the Pakistan army to do this.
As you said, it's a love-hate relationship, but the love and hate come from different kinds of people. And it's absolutely true that the Pakistan army has a great extent of support. There's also a kind of compact that they are the ultimate guardians of Pakistan, and they are, in some senses, the guardians of the flame. They are the ones who keep the original idea of Pakistan intact, and its integrity, therefore, is very much part of their mandate. And to a great extent, people buy into that perspective, that own self-image of the Pakistan army. Why is that so? I think it is to do with Pakistan's history, the kind of unresolved issues with India, its whole identity issues about what does it mean to be a Pakistani. So, people have used imagery such as calling Pakistan a garrison state. But certainly, there is a huge buy-in from many people in Pakistan into this securitized view of Pakistan which the Pakistan army has and which it tries to protect. And certainly, when we talk about the identity of Pakistan, this Kashmir factor plays a very big role, because while many people can forget, but nobody in Pakistan's army ever forgets that K in Pakistan stands for Kashmir, and which is why it feels that it has to have such a major say in everything to do in relations with India. So alongside this compact, there is another sentiment, and which has always also existed in Pakistan, which is a sometimes latent, sometimes very visible anti-military sentiment. And all political parties are conscious of that sentiment and try to capitalize on it from time to time. So where Pakistan's army's relations with the public are concerned, there are these two separate dynamics at play. There is this compact with the people and this self-image of being the ultimate guardian of Pakistan's integrity and identity. But there's also this latent and sometimes visible anti-military sentiment, which can acquire a great deal of political force, as Imran Khan has demonstrated now, but in the past, Benazir Bhutto had demonstrated, and Nawaz Sharif had demonstrated, and before that, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto had demonstrated. So the Pakistan Army's role is really in managing these two different kinds of sentiment, which are always there in Pakistan, and which is why its image is so important. Because if that image gets sullied, and in the past few years, that image, as I said, has taken a beating, it makes managing this very difficult role of playing this major role in Pakistan's polity and society, while recognizing that there is this anti-military sentiment, gets very difficult. So to put it briefly, I foresee, regardless of what happens in this contest with Imran Khan, I foresee more and more difficulties for the Pakistan Army in the months and years ahead.
Right. That's a great point to end this conversation, this session of Indian Express Explained Live. And I will now ask Monojit to bring this session to a close. Thanks a lot, Ambassador Raghavan. It was a very interesting session.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I mean, what a very nice, telling, and very thoughtful line to end this. Dr. Raghavan, so informative, so wonderful as always, erudite, clear-eyed. I mean, I'm sorry I had to go away in the middle. We have an edition also tonight, but I am going to catch up whatever I missed on YouTube, on our channel, and those of you who might have also missed parts of it or would like to go back to it. This episode will be on the Indian Express's YouTube channel soon afterwards. I hope that you will go and check this out. Dr. Raghavan, fantastic, of course, and also, he's also written this wonderful book on Pakistan. He's also been, he retired at the end of 2015, and in the last 7.5 years, he has produced 3 absolutely outstanding books. So the first one is I think it's called People Next Door. It's the history of India and Pakistan. Sort of this, I think he calls it the curious case of India and Pakistan. So that's a book that I strongly recommend. And then there are 2 history books, which all you history buffs, these books are so different. One is the story of Bairam Khan and Abdur Rahim Khane Khanan, 2 high Mughal officials. And then the other one is about these 3 historians. That's a bit of a hardcore history thing, but I strongly recommend. There is Jadunath Sarkar, really the doyen of Mughal history writing, and then there is Govind Sakharam Sardesai, the Maratha historian, and Raghuveer Singh, the Punjab historian. So all of you, in fact. In the chat box, I mean, I still have 40 open questions. I'm really sorry that we couldn't accommodate more of that. Thank you, all of you. And somebody in the chat box said that I have just bought Dr. Raghavan's book right now. So please go ahead and do the same. And thank you for being a wonderful audience. Finally, Nirupama, what can I say? Fantastic as always. Such a pleasure to listen to these 2 old Pakistan hands, and thank you so much. Thank you again, Dr. Raghavan, and thank you to my, of course, our sponsors, Plutus IAS, and everybody. What a nice evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Raghavan. Thanks, Monojit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Plutus IAS